Chapter 7. Now there were three of us sitting in the waiting room to hear how Daly and Johnny were. Then the reporters and the police came. There were too many questions too fast and got me mixed up. If you want to know the truth, I wasn't feeling real good in the first place, kind of sick, really, and kind of scared of the policemen anyway. The reporters fired one question right after another, and I got so confused I didn't know which one was coming off. Derry finally told them I wasn't in any shape to be yelling at so much, and they slowed down a bit. Derry's kind of big. Soda Pop kept them in stitches. He grabbed one guy's press hat, another camera, and walked around interviewing the nurses and mimicking TV reporters. He tried to lift a policeman's gun and grinned so crazily that he was caught that the policeman had to grin too. Soda can make anyone grin. I managed to get a hold of some hair grease and comb my hair back so it looked a little better before they got any pictures. I'd die if my picture in the paper with my hair looking so lousy. Derry and Soda Pop were in the pictures too. Jerry Wood told me that if Soda Pop and Derry weren't so good looking, they wouldn't have taken so many. That was public appeal, he said. Soda was really getting a kick out of all this. I guess he would have enjoyed it more if it hadn't been so serious, but he couldn't resist anything that caused that much excitement. I swear, sometimes he reminds me of a colt, a long legged Palomino colt that has to get his nose into everything. Reporters stared at him admiringly. I told you he looks like a movie star, and he kind of radiates. Finally, even Soda Pop got tired of the reporters. He got bored with all the same old thing after a time and stretched out on the long bench. He put his head in Derry's lap and went to sleep. I guess both of them were tired. It was a late night, and I knew they hadn't had much sleep during the week. Even while I was answering questions, I remembered that there had been a few hours since I was sleeping off the smoke in the corner of the church. Already, I had an unreal dream, and yet, at the time, I couldn't have imagined any other world. Finally, the reporter started to leave along with the police. One of them turned and asked, "What would you do right now if you could do anything you wanted?" I looked at him tiredly. "Take a bath." And they thought that was pretty funny, but I meant it. I felt lousy. The hospital got real quiet after they left. The only noise, the nurse's footsteps, soft footsteps, and sort of light breathing. Derry looked down at him and grinned half-heartedly. "He didn't get much sleep this week," he said softly. "He's hardly slept at all." "Hmm," Soda said drowsily. "You didn't either." The nurses wouldn't tell us anything about Johnny and Daly, so Derry got a hold of the doctor. The doctor told us that he would only talk to family, but Derry finally got it through the guy's head that we were as much as family to Daly and Johnny had. Daly would be okay after 2 or 3 days in the hospital, he said. One arm was badly burned and would be scarred for the rest of his life, but he would have full use of it in a couple of weeks. Daly'll be okay, I thought. Dallas was always okay. He could take anything. It was Johnny I was worried about. He was in critical condition. His back had been broken when that piece of timber fell on him. He was in severe shock and suffered from third-degree burns. They were doing everything they could do to ease the pain. Although, since his back was broken, he couldn't even feel the burns below his waist. He kept calling for Dallas and Ponyboy if he lived. If. Please, no, I thought. Please, not if. The blood was draining from my face, and Derry put an arm across my shoulder and squeezed hard. Even if he lived, he'd be crippled the rest of his life. You wanted it straight, you got it straight, the doctor said. Now go home and get some rest. I was trembling. The pain was growing in my throat and I wanted to cry, but greasers don't cry in front of strangers. Some of us never cry at all, like Daly and Two-Bit and Tim Shepard. They forgot how at an early age. Johnny, crippled for life, the dreaming. I thought in panic. I'm dreaming. I'll wake up at home or in the church and everything will be like it used to be. But I didn't believe myself. Even if Johnny didn't live, he'd be crippled, did live, he'd be crippled and never play football or help us out in a rumble again. He'd have to stay in that house he hated, where he wasn't wanted, and things couldn't never be like they used to be. I didn't trust myself to speak. But if I said one word, the hard knot in my throat would swell and I'd be crying in spite of myself. I took a deep breath and kept my mouth shut. Soda was awake by then, and although he looked stony faced, as if he hadn't heard a word from the doctor, the doctor had said his eyes were bleak and stunned. Serious reality had hard time coming through to Soda, but when it does, it hit him hard. Hits him hard. He looked like I felt when I had seen the black-haired Soc lying doubled up in the still of the moonlight. Derry was rubbing the back of my head softly. We'd better get home. We can't do anything here. In our Ford, I was suddenly overcome by sleepiness. I leaned back and closed my eyes, and where we were home before I knew it. Soda was shaking me gently. Hey, pony boy, wake up. We still gotta get you to the house. I said sleepily and lay down in the seat. I could have I couldn't have gotten up to save my life. I could hear Soda and Derry, but it was as if it was from a great distance. Oh, come on, pony boy, Soda pleaded, shaking me a little harder. We're sleepy too. I guess Derry was tired of fooling around because he picked me up and carried me in. He's getting mighty big to be carried, Soda said. I wanted to tell him to shut up and just let me sleep, but I only yawned. He sure lost a lot of weight, Derry said. I thought sleepily, and I should at least pull off my shoes, but I didn't. I went to sleep, and the minute Derry tossed me on the bed, I forgot how soft a bed really was. I was the first one up the next morning. Soda must have pulled my shoes and shirt off for me. I was still wearing my jeans. He must have been too sleepy to undress himself, though. He lay stretched out beside me, fully clothed. I wiggled from under his arm and pulled the blanket up over him, then went to take a shower. Asleep, he looked a lot younger than going on 17, but I had noticed that Johnny looked younger when he was asleep too, so I figured everybody did. Maybe people are younger when they are asleep. After my shower, I put on some clean clothes and spent 5 minutes or so hunting for a hint of beard on my face and mourned over my hair. That bum haircut made my ears stick out. Derry was still asleep when I went to the kitchen to fix breakfast. The first one up has to fix breakfast and the other two do the dishes. That's the rule around our house. And usually it's Derry who fixes breakfast and me and Soda were left with the dishes. I hunted through the icebox and found some eggs. Like all our we all like our eggs done differently. I like them hard. Derry likes them with bacon and tomato sandwich. Soda eats them with grape jelly. All three of us like chocolate cake for breakfast. Mom has never allowed us to it with ham and eggs, but Derry let Soda and me talk him into it. We really didn't have to twist his arm. Derry loves chocolate cake as much as we do. Soda Pop always makes sure there's some in the icebox every night, and if there isn't, he cooks one up real quick. I like Derry's cakes better. Soda Pop puts too much sugar in the icing. I don't see how he stands jelly and eggs and chocolate cake all at once, but he seems to like it. Derry drinks black coffee and Soda Pop, and I drink chocolate milk. We could have coffee if we wanted it, but I like chocolate milk. All three of us are crazy about chocolate stuff. Soda says if they ever make chocolate cigarette, I'll have I'll have it made. Anybody home? Familiar voice called through the front screen, and Two-Bit and Steve came in. We always just stick our heads into each other's houses and holler, "Hey," and walk in. Our front door is always unlocked in case one of the boys is hacked off at his parents and needs a place to lay over and cool off. We never could tell who will find stretched in the sofa in the morning. It was usually Steve, whose father told him about once a week to get out and never come back. It kind of bugs Steve, even if his old man does give him $5 or $6 the next day to make up for it. Or it might be Daly, who lived anywhere he could. Once we even found Tim Shepard, leader of the Shepherd gang, in the far from his home turf, reading morning paper in the armchair. He merely looked up and said hi. He strolled out without even staying for breakfast. Two-Bit's mother warned us about burglars, but Derry, flexing his muscles so that they bulged like oversized baseballs, drawled that he wouldn't be afraid of any burglars, and if he really wanted to take anything, there wasn't really, and that we didn't really have anything worth taking. He'd probably he'd risk robbery, he said, if it meant keeping one of the boys from blowing up and robbing a gas station or something. So the door was never locked. "In here," I yelled, forgetting that Derry and Soda Pop were still asleep. "Don't slam the door." They slammed the door, of course, and Two-Bit came running into the kitchen. He caught me under the arms and swung me around, ignoring the fact that I had two uncooked eggs in my hand. "Hey, pony boy," he cried gleefully. "Long time no see." You would have thought that had been 5 years instead of 5 days. Instead, I'd seen him last. But I didn't mind. I like old Two-Bit. He was a good old buddy to have. He spun me into Steve, who gave me a playful slap on my bruised back and shoved me across the room. One of the eggs went flying. It landed on the clock, and I tightened my grip on the other one so that it crushed and ran all over my hand. "Now look at what you did," I griped. There went our breakfast. "Can you two wait till I set the eggs down before you go shoving me all over the country?" I really was a little mad because I had just realized how long it had been since I'd eaten anything. The last thing I'd eaten was hot fudge sundae at the Dairy Queen in Windricksville, and I was hungry. Two-Bit was walking in a slow circle around me and sighed because I knew it was coming. "Man, dig Baldy here." He would he would start at my head as he circled me. I wouldn't have believed it. I thought all those wild Indians in Oklahoma had been tamed. What what little squaws got that little tough mop of yours, pony boy? Lay off, I said. I wasn't feeling too good in the first place. Kind of like I was coming down with something. Two-Bit winked at Steve, and Steve said, "Why, he just got a haircut to get his picture in the paper." They'd never believed greasy looking mug could be a hero. "How'd you like being a hero, Big Shot?" "How do I like what?" "Being a hero. You know." He shoved the morning paper at me impatiently. "Like Big Shot, even." I stared at the newspaper. On the front page of the second section of the headline, "Juvenile delinquents turn hero." What is it like? What is it? What I like is turn, bit Two-Bit said, clearing the egg up off the floor. "Y'all heroes from the beginning, just you don't know, didn't turn all of a sudden." I heard him. I was reading the paper. I hardly heard him. I was reading the paper. The whole page was covered with stories about us, the fight, the murder, the church bombing, the socials being drunk, everything. My picture was there. Dairy and Soda Pop. The article told how Johnny and I had risked our lives to save those little kids. And there was a comment from one of the parents who said that they all would have burned to death if it hadn't been for us. I told the whole story of it told the whole story of a fight with the socias. I didn't even say the socias because most grown-ups don't even know the battles go on between us. They had interviewed Sherry Valance and said Bob had been drunk and the boys had been looking for a fight. And when they took her home, Bob had told her that he'd fix us for picking up his girl. His buddy, Randy Anderson, had helped us and had said that it was their fault. And that we'd only fought back in self defense.